Hello, welcome to Bryan's career story. Chapter 1, Life's Debut. Bryan Gibbs Breckenridge, affectionately known as Bry, was born in 1974 and raised in a small farm town in eastern Kansas, 4 miles from the Missouri border. Bryan was 6 years old when his mom and dad split. Bryan's mom moved to Kansas City to advance her career in advertising work, which he still pursues today at 73. His stepmom led finance for a Ford dealership for decades, and his dad took over, expanded, and eventually dissolved his family's retail clothing business as Sam Walton took over small town USA. As a child, Bryan was eager to spend time in his dad's 4 stores, always asking people how their day was and if they needed any help. Bryan's ability to deeply connect with people is a cornerstone of his servant leadership style. Physically, Bryan was a late bloomer. In fact, he was the second smallest kid in his class. Growing up in a conservative, blue-collar town where masculinity was defined by bench press weight, Bryan was often seen as an outcast by peers. He ultimately used his mind, golf stroke, wit, and musical talent to overcome his bench press shortcomings. Bryan was a Boy Scout, volunteering often in his community. During holidays, he and his mom donned costumes and visited youth homes to spread good cheer. His growth spurt happened his junior year, and by graduation, he was a tall, handsome young man ready to conquer the world. Bryan attended the University of Kansas and studied journalism media management, inspired to follow in his mom's successful footsteps. However, he was equally interested in an emerging thing called the internet and a career in tech sales. He sold for the school newspaper and KJHK, the campus radio station, and was a peer counselor in the Office of Minority Affairs. Bryan also ran to become president of his fraternity, Delta Chi, but he lost the race to his best friend. As a consolation, he became the fraternity's philanthropy chair. In this role, he became invigorated. Being a change agent for good came natural to him. He raised thousands of dollars for local causes during annual Mom's Weekend auctions and partnered with local nonprofits. His fraternity would play wheelchair basketball with youth on weekend afternoons before evening parties commenced. It was a win-win situation for both the fraternity and the communities. Finding creative ways to open minds and hearts and embody the values of the fraternity challenged and energized Bryan. In fact, it foreshadowed his eventual career victories and corporate social impact. Chapter 2, Journey of Answering the Call. After graduating valedictorian of his class, Bryan immediately began his tech sales career, working at a few big companies like Sprint and Ingram Micro, and then joining tech startups. While he earned good money early on in his career, he felt hollow and disconnected by the void of not yet doing his life's intended work. After one of Bryan's startup employers folded in late 2000, he called on one of their vendors, a brand new company called Salesforce.com, for a job. He needed the role to stay in California. In early 2001, Salesforce extended him an offer as a field sales account executive. It was a welcomed opportunity. Bryan asked to delay his start date by a few months so he could take a volunteering sabbatical to rural northeast India to get inspired and re-energized mentally and physically. The Himachal Pradesh villagers embraced him wholeheartedly. In turn, Bryan gave all of himself back to them. The entire experience not only recalibrated him, but reminded him of the things that truly mattered in life. The trip cemented for him the notion that overall happiness is defined by connecting with and positively impacting others, not just toiling for self-gain and bigger W-2s. Salesforce Foundation added Bryan to their steering committee on his first day. According to him, the steering committee was a bunch of high-energy kids in their early 20s just sitting on beanbag chairs, dreaming of the possible. These dreams would later form the springboard for Salesforce.com's massive social impact. In Bryan's view, companies can't focus on economic value creation anymore. Scalable social and environmental value creation, synergized with the economic returns blended value, is a more solid path to enduring success. Many of Bryan's new colleagues asked about his trip to India. He later learned that CEO and founder Mark Benioff had taken a similar trip to India years prior, finding inspiration to launch the company. Leadership starts at the top, and Bryan could tell that Mark's vision for embracing diversity, inclusion, and giving back was authentic and going places. He was excited to bring his go-to-market skills and social impact convictions to their movement. Chapter 3, Growth and Pain. Though it was tough at times juggling 2 households during childhood, Bryan's parents' divorce was a gift in disguise. Bryan's mom's life partners were positive male role models and exposed him to all different learned experiences that would guide him into embracing all walks of life. All four of his parents instilled compassion, a solid work ethic, and other important life wisdoms in Bryan and his 5 siblings. During the summer before his senior year, Bryan experienced a mental breakdown. Concerned for her son's safety and well-being, Bryan's mom took him to the hospital. His mental breakthrough arrived in an art therapy session when he was prompted to draw things that made him smile. Bryan drew a trumpet with musical notes. In that moment, Bryan realized he was overcomplicating everything and literally ignoring the music of life. I was unhealthy and under so much self-induced pressure to achieve that I became a prisoner of my own mind. It took months to rebuild myself. Since that challenging summer, Bryan has never taken his mental health for granted. Chapter 4, Bryans Impact. These 2 major life events and overcoming other setbacks inspired Bryan to create Belief Energy, an optimum living philosophy in 2010. Belief Energy, or being, is about getting grounded and aligning one's values, social ties, health, plans, and actions. Bryan's fully aligned life calling is to enable scalable positive impact by empowering 3 tribes. 1. People seeking being. 2. Corporate leaders determined to elevate humanity. And 3. Disempowered nonprofit leaders with critical missions. Bryan's being is supercharged by his wife, who's also his executive coach. He's also inspired by his daughter, son, friends, mentors, colleagues, and anyone that is disadvantaged, underrepresented, or suffering. These tribes inspire him to dream big and achieve the possible from boardrooms, mountain running trails, and his home in the San Francisco Bay Area. During his career journey, Bryan has enabled lots of people to experience being. He has also started or scaled well-regarded Silicon Valley social impact programs at Salesforce.com, LinkedIn, Box, and Zillow. Bryan just announced his latest exciting opportunity as head of social impact at Sneak. One of Sneak's main company values is care deeply. He's excited to channel Sneak's generous spirit and mighty war chest of resources into their sustainable social impact agenda. Bryan's first focus will be listening and learning, and then helping them construct a 3-year vision and plan. Please stay in touch with Bryan and get updates on his journey at BryanBreckenridge.com.